Hi everybody, my name is Kevin Kraft, and as a part of PE 570, Leadership and Administration of Physical Education and Athletics, today I'm going to be talking to you about bullying and hazing. Bullying and hazing are important topics that can take place in potentially any social setting or group. Although both of these topics are different in many ways, they have the power to have a negative effect on the individuals the same way. The presentation that I'm going to be talking to you about is going to talk to you about values, faiths, and belief. What is bullying? How are they alike and different? What does bullying and hazing potentially look like? And what are the problems with hazing and how we can identify it? And finally, I'm going to talk to you about what we can do about bullying and hazing and how we should go about the processes as coaches and administrators and shareholders within a program about dealing with the problem. So it's something that's become very relevant in like I said, in a lot of social settings. Definitely athletics, as it's been handed down a lot of traditions and all across campus, and it's an important thing because it resonates throughout the community. So this is an important topic, and first, I think it's important to understand what the shareholders in the community's values, faiths, and beliefs should be, definitely within the athletic program. So first of all, my own and what I would think to be our values within the athletic department should be is that they're going to be tested when we talk about bullying and hazing. If coaches and other stakeholders in the program are not willing to confront the issue, it shows a lack of concern for the problem. And this not only puts individuals' values in jeopardy, but also the values of our athletic program, the school, and then the district, and then the community in jeopardy. So it's really important to take this topic seriously, or it has the potential to resonate throughout the community and make others feel that our community is possibly not taking this as serious as it should be. Our faith can help guide us through this topic by understanding that most faiths teach acceptance. No matter what somebody's faith is, most teachings teach acceptance, and we should all treat and love and respect each other the way that God holds his love for children. And this really comes down to the golden rule: treat others how you want to be treated. And I think that really touches on bullying, but maybe not so much hazing, and we'll look at that a little later why. Finally, our beliefs. What sports are meant to help. Sports are help to make us build confidence and teamwork and trust and support strong bodies and minds. And all of these beliefs that our society holds true about sports and athletics and team building are so great are going to be undermined by bullying and hazing. So we need to make it our mission to create a safe, healthy environment as the student grows. And a part of our belief system has to be the mission statement of the school, the mission statement of the program. So we need to make it really clear what that's going to be. So first, I think we should define what bullying is. Bullying can be defined as a relationship of violence involving practices of domination that strip another person of the capacity for agency, using intervention, carrying the sustained threat of harm. And what does all that mean? Well, I think usually it's pretty clear to see what bullying is, but most of the time it focuses on the exclusion of one person from a team. It usually comes from one person. So the attention and activities are unwanted from the recipient. These are generally unwarranted actions that the recipient is not really excited about. So it's really kind of a clear thing to see here. It's intended to cause physical harm, verbal harm, or social harm. So especially today with everything going on in the internet, it's not necessarily just what happens in front of our eyes. We also need to be aware of what's going on in the rest of the aspects of students' lives. So the physical and verbal part is obviously one that's easier to see, and then the social harm comes with a lot of that, but also can come from the internet. Bullying is typically something that is repeated over time. So if somebody bullies somebody, they're not just going to do it one time and then let it go. It's going to keep happening, and that person is going to be perceived as weak compared to the person who's perceived as having power, and it's just going to keep happening until something's done by it. Hazing is completely different. We have to understand why. Hazing, I give a definition of hazing that is a little bit broad, and we'll understand why I give this definition a little bit later. But hazing can be defined as a broad term encompassing any action or activity which does not contribute to the positive development of a person, which inflicts or intends to cause physical or mental harm or anxieties, which may demean, degrade, disgrace any person regardless of location, intent, or consent or participation. Hazing can also be defined as any action or situation which intentionally or unintentionally endangers the student for admission into or affiliation with any other organization. So that's a really broad term, and that the reason why will come later, but hazing is usually done by a group, not by an individual, like bullying, and it's done where so that members can gain access to a group. So it's usually the older members or the members with more power doing it to the younger members so that they can become part of a group, where bullying is an exclusive activity. It's only sometimes aggressive behavior. So sometimes it's verbal and physical and violent, and sometimes it's not. Maybe it's just somebody making the kids carrying their book bags or something like that. And that seems very innocent, but until we step back and understand what hazing really is, we see that could be potentially a hazing thing where people are making them do tasks, they're making them do scavenger hunts, which seem harmless, but they really might not be. And so it's important to understand that hazing is a really broad, all-encompassing term that we need to be aware of. The actions are not always intended to cause harm, and those who are being hazed want to gain access to the group. So sometimes they'll be willing to participate, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not hazing. The actions or activities are not usually repeated over time. That's usually because they do it one time and then everybody accepts them as part of their group. So how are bullying and hazing alike? What do these two have in common? Well, the root cause and goals of bullying and hazing differ in that bullying is an exclusive action and hazing is an inclusive activity. And they are similar in ways that are often the result of their actions. So they're both forms of youth violence that take place in a variety of forms and settings. They're both out of some sort of power imbalance that is perceived either physically or institutionally. So whether somebody's stronger than you, or they're just an older person than you, or potentially even a coach or a boss in the program that is has some sort of power over the other person. And that's why the hazing really is a problem, because it's perceived power. Both bullying and hazing can be constituted by some form of humiliation, degradation, abuse, and endangerment in the forms of physical, verbal, or social means. So they both have that in common. So that's what it is, but now we need to take a look at, well, what does this look like in real life? Bullying can be spotted usually because it's one person inflicting some sort of aggressive behavior on another person, and the person who is receiving it is not really willing to accept it. And it's kind of something that I think most people are aware of, and it's a lot more clear to see. Whereas hazing is much more difficult to spot. It encompasses a wide range of aspects, and generally, if we don't want to talk about it in a public setting or with our peers or with our family, then that should probably raise some red flags, and we should think about what we're doing or what we just saw, and if we might want to report that. Also, if you see something that looks out of the ordinary, and there's some examples below this point that say You see some things like hygiene concerns, somebody who hasn't maybe taken a shower, or they're looking really tired, maybe sleep deprivation, or outfits out of the ordinary. You shouldn't just shrug those off. You got to take those into account and think, well, what's going on here? And take a minute to view your surroundings and view what's going on and understand what's happening. So some of the examples of hazing include sleep deprivation and things like that. It could include drinking, alcohol, food, or diet consumption. And the problem with hazing and bullying is that it creates a climate on teams that has the ability to resonate throughout the campus and community. It's important that when it is spotted, to bring it to the attention and confront it. If not, the norms are shaped the way people often want to accept the culture on campus, and more people will become bystanders instead of identifying it. So that's really important, that whatever happens within these clubs and teams, it's a slippery slope, and it's going to resonate back out into the community. So we have to really take a proactive approach in assessing all this. The problem with hazing is much different than bullying. Hazing comes from a place of usually culture or rituals around an athletic program, and it's a tradition that's sometimes passed down. So that can be a problem. The real problem is that it can occur regardless of the willingness of those who are participating, based on who's taking place and how it's being performed. So the reason it can be hazing, whether the person agrees to or not, is because of the perception of power within the group. If an individual feels they are in a peer pressure situation, it's not true consent, regardless if the person thinks that they want to do it in the moment. Well, they're usually in a group mentality where everybody is saying, yeah, do it. And it's the way in which it's done. And that's why the definition of hazing is the way it is. It's so broad, because if it says you can't drink alcohol, well, then people are going to maybe make them drink water, and that's also a problem. Some of the statistics down here are 74% of athletes have experienced some sort of hazing behavior, and 65% of athletes are aware of it. And the really staggering statistic here is that 95% of hazing incidents went unreported. And so it's a problem that we need to really make an effort to understand what it is, and then we can then do something about it. So developing and implementing some anti-hazing and bullying processes. The first step in that is going to be defining what it is. So bullying is pretty clear, but especially hazing must have a really clear definition so that all the stakeholders within the program understand exactly what it is and exactly how it's going to be encompassed. Because, going on a scavenger hunt might not seem really harmful, but the way some people perceive what's happening, that could be a problem. The list, it can include a list of prohibited activities, but however, these lists are not all encompassing, as I said, and it's important to understand that hazing can occur regardless of the willingness to participate, as I said before. The second step in the process of the anti-hazing bullying is the procedures. So you have to have a really clear set of procedures on your campus, and everybody needs to be aware of the reporting and investigation process that's going to take place. Usually all of the reporting should take place within a third party, somebody that doesn't have a stake in the athletic program. So there's no bias, there's no conflict of interest in any of these reportings that go on. And additionally, another thing that might be recommended is to have an anonymous reporting system, so that if there is some hazing that might occur or bullying and somebody doesn't want to come out and say it, it can come to light. And it's also important that coaches report anything they see, because they're not only looking out for their safety of their students and their health of their students, but also for their jobs. A lot of coaches are losing their jobs because they see something going on, or they know about something and they don't report it, or they sweep it under the rug, and then it comes to light later, and coaches will lose their jobs. So it's really important that everybody be educated and everybody really go through the process of this. The investigation procedure should be clear process with a clear time frame of completion, and all of the punishments and violations need to be really established so it's real clear what's going to happen. Developing these are usually a result of seeing what's happening in other communities and then developing more. It's an ongoing effect, so it's not something that's really clear, and it's ever changing, so we got to stay on top of it. Number 3 is communication. Spreading these policies of hazing and bullying throughout the school and flooding the school with knowledge is a really good way of pushing this into the forefront of the conversation around the campus. It's good to have it in coaching handbooks. It's good to have it in student-athlete code of conduct, participation agreements, and really make a coalition around the school and try to really push it into the community so that it becomes a culture of awareness. Aside from the policies set in place, coaches and administrators need to do presentations and discussions. It's a really valuable thing if coaches can involve more and more groups. So whether that's the band, whether that's ASB or the ROTC, or all these things have potentially hazing and bullying within their own groups, and it's not limited to athletics. So the more people that are involved, the better it's going to be. Fourth, alternatives to hazing, especially. This is important because coaches want to build team building, and they want to have team building, and they want their teams to have traditions, and they need activities for their students to do to feel like that part of the team. Well, hazing sabotages the team building process and the trust of the team. So coaches really need to be involved in these, and some really great examples are having dinners with the team, watching movies, taking part in any sort of activity that the team can help organize. And these are all really important in making everybody feel as one, getting alumni to come back, people talking about what their experiences are on the team and what it means to them. These are all really great alternatives to hazing activities. And the coaches is definitely supervising these, so they're really, really safe. And finally, the monitoring process. It's a constant issue that needs to be tackled. It's not something that can be taken on one time and it's done. It's ever occurring, and it needs to happen throughout the year at important times, especially the beginning of the year. And then every season that happens with every sport, at the beginning of every sport, it's when we need to really push it to the front, because it's usually when things happen. Some ways of getting an idea of what's happening and monitoring it are putting out surveys around the campus, and also doing environmental scans where we look at the procedures at the school, we look at how many reports are coming in, and we do some interviews with students and staff about how the problems are going. Finally, in conclusion, bullying is a problem that encompasses all aspects of our team, social lives, and communities. And with a clear understanding of what bullying and hazing is and what we can do to prevent it, we'll have a much safer and more healthy environment for the student athletes. This topic requires vigilance from all the stakeholders in the program, not only every year, but multiple times a year as in different sports and seasons arise. The goal of this issue really should be prevention, but when it happens, we must be able to spot it and act on it appropriately. Thanks for your time, guys. I hope everybody's doing great.